Welcome back. I am some guy you've never heard of, and this is the tale of Naarifin the Skald. Hey,
My
Lucian.
mother once had a nasty run-in with a hunger. Nearly killed her, apparently. I wonder if she'd like one of their tongues as a keepsake.
Maybe. But you know what? I think this letter is for you.
Oh? Perhaps the courier gave it to you by mistake. Let me see. Ooh, marvellous. It's from my father. Do you remember I said he was looking into Doomsbathar for me? It seems he's had some success. He's found me its location. Turns out we were completely wrong when we guessed it was in Skyrim. It's actually on Solstheim. Not only that, but he's also sent me the key. Can we go? Oh, please say we can go.
Not right now. We've got other things to take care of first, but it is definitely on our list now.
I suppose you're right. Perhaps when some of our other concerns are a bit less pressing?
Indeed.
Let me know if you need anything else.
I shall. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and reflect on our experience. Alright, fine then. We're going to reflect on our experiences. I think we could do with more magicka this time. Conjuration is at 40. I could do atromancy. Nice. Could always learn some new smithing. Interesting. Could also go with imposing presence. Maybe even entice barter. That would be interesting, but I don't know calm. I think I'm just going to hold on to that perk point for now. 8:46. I suppose I should start studying for my exam. History of Skyrim Primer, Volume 1, The Early Years, by Giraud Germain. Skyrim, also known as the Old Kingdom, Throat of the World, the Fatherland, or Kaizal, is the vast region set in the northern part of Tamriel. It is the home of the Nords, large and hardy men and women who have a strong resistance to frost, both natural and magical. The history of Skyrim is long, and much of it is lost to time, with mysteries whose answers are beyond the reach of even the most schools keepers of history. Skyrim was originally inhabited by a race of Mer known as the Snow Elves, though we know little of their history prior to the arrival of humans. During the Merithic era, a legendary Atmoran leader named Ysgramor led an expedition from Atmora across the Sea of Ghosts to the land that would later be known as Skyrim. They called the land Marith, in recognition of the vast number of Mer that lived there. It was the first region of Tamriel to be settled by humans. According to legend, Ysgramor landed first at Sarakad, at the extreme northern tip of Skyrim's Broken Cape. It is said that he and his companions were fleeing the civil war in Atmora, which at that time had a sizable population. I'm pretty sure there were already needs present, at least in Cyrodiil and other regions. The Atmorans settled the area that in the future would be known as Winterhold. They eventually built a city in the region and named it Sarthal. For a long while, relations between the Snow Elves and the Atmorans were relatively peaceful. This peace did not last long and ended for good during the Night of Tears. The importance of this event cannot be overstated, as the history of Skyrim would be forever changed. History tells us that the Snow Elves sacked the city of Sarthal without warning. There are a variety of accounts as to why this happened. Some say the Snow Elves saw that the Nords, with their considerably shorter life expectancy, fast rates of physical maturation, and expedient by Elven standards reproductive cycle, would eventually overtake them if left unchecked. Another theory suggests that the sacking of Sarthal was brought on by some specific event that took place in Sarthal. While it is currently unknown what might have occurred, the very focused attack on Sarthal rather than other locations of greater strategic importance lends weight that there was something about Sarthal that concerned the elves rather than the extermination of the Nords as the primary reason for the attack. According to legend, only Ysgramor and his two sons were able to escape back to Atmora. When Ysgramor and his sons returned to Atmora, they told stories of the events that occurred in Skyrim, and gathered many around them for a return to retake Skyrim and avenge Sarthal. After Ysgramor was set to return to Skyrim with an army known as the 500 Companions, composed of the heroes of the Atmoran Civil War. On the day of final passage, the 500 Companions left the port of Ilkefrik to return to Skyrim. This marked the beginning of the Nordic Falmer War. The Nordic Falmer War took place in the late Middle Merithic era, and was a campaign which seemed to be indecisive for much of its duration. The battle that decided it for the Atmorans was the Battle of the Mosring. During the battle, the Atmorans were winning, and it appeared that they would be victorious, until the arrival of the Snow Prince. He rallied and led his forces into combat, inspiring the troops of the last remaining army of Snow Elves before allegedly being killed by a small child. The death of the Snow Prince shattered the morale and motivation of the remaining Snow Elf warriors. Many Snow Elves fled, and those who remained on the battlefield were killed. The Snow Elf Prince himself was buried with honors by his Nord foes. The war would end shortly after, and was followed by a purge of Skyrim's remaining Snow Elves. The 500 Companions, without much resistance, secured the region and laid the foundations for the Ysgramor dynasty. Ysgramor and his 500 companions not only fought the Snow Elves, but also the Giants, After many hundreds were slain in battle, the giant of legend, Sinmer, was cornered in his barrow and fought Ysgramor to the death. However, the giant was no match for Ysgramor's mighty axe Uthrad. The axe was driven into Sinmer's skull after he was brought to his knees by Ysgramor. With the death of Sinmer, the giants were never as mighty a threat, and so the war ended. And there ends that volume. Alright, I shall spend a little time studying some of my spell notes. I'll have some wolf haunch and some wine. And an apple. And some water. I suppose it's time for some sleep. I suppose I should check out the timetable. Still have one of those, do I not? No, I do not. Interesting. Oh well. Thank you, Lady Mara, for helping me gain acceptance into the Bard's College. Well, I'm going to find a more comfortable spot to do more reading. Have some of this vegetable soup for breakfast.
Formal training may have worked for me, but it's not for everyone. Some of the best bards never set foot in the college.
Good to know. But regardless of whether formal training is right for everyone,
Arya is quite talented.
it's
At least that was Paltia said.
always useful to be able to say that you've trained
Talented as her.
at a certain place. It gives you a certain air of legitimacy, maybe. I think I'll have a seat here. History of Skyrim Primer, Volume 2, First Era, by Giraud Germain. No elves persisted within the borders of Skyrim until the reign of the the Ysgramor dynasty, King Harald. At the beginning of the First Era, King Harald was the first to relinquish all holdings in Atmora, proclaiming the people of Skyrim as independent, as until that time the Nords of Atmora and Skyrim had been considered the same group. Vraga the Gifted started the expansion that would eventually lead to the First Empire of Men. Within 50 years of his reign, the Nords ruled all of Skyrim, as well as parts of High Rock, Cyrodiil, and the Dunmer lands of Morrowind. Was it Morrowind already at that point, or was it still Resdayn? The acquisition of Morrowind was particularly bloody, still remembered by the Dunmer. The purpose of the formation of the Khmer Dwemer Kingdom of Resdayn was to expel the Nords. Okay, it was still Resdayn back then. In First Era 369, High King Morgus was killed during the Wild Hunt. His death led to the start of Skyrim's War of Succession. The War of Succession caused Skyrim's influence over many of its dominions to wane. The Direni hegemony took advantage to the internal strife in Skyrim, and began taking land north and south of High Rock, even claiming portions of Skyrim at certain moments. I have descent from the Direni. So much so that that's even my mother's surname. In First Era 416, the discord produced by the War of Succession greatly weakened the Nords and caused them to be expelled from Morrowind during the First Battle of Red Mountain. The Second Battle of Red Mountain would occur in First Era 700. The Nords lost all of their territory in Morrowind, and their armies suffered huge casualties at the hands of the combined Khmer Dwemer army. Stop calling it Morrowind. If the Khmer were still Khmer, then it's still Resdayn. In First Era 420, the Skyrim War of Succession ended with the Pact of Chieftains and the crowning of Olaf One-Eye as High King. Records indicated that Olaf expanded Skyrim's boundaries when he conquered the Reach. Following Olaf's reign, the Crown of Verity was created to ensure that the Moot would select a ruler worthy enough to rule Skyrim. The crown caused controversy when it rejected the Moot's choice of King Asern Icebreaker. Following his rejection, Asern was then killed by Yorick the White, who took the crown for himself. Relations soured with Cyrodiil when Yorick rebelled against Emperor Gorius and his Elysian army, but was killed at the Battle of Sungard in First Era 477 or 478. His son and heir, Hogue Merkiller, resented the Elysian Order so much that he allied with the Direni hegemony and King Rislov Laric's insurgents in their war against the Order. Hogue was soon killed at the Battle of Glenumbria Moors, and his successor Wulfharth continued his predecessor's work in devastating the Elysian Order. High King Wulfharth re-established the Nordic pantheon as the mainstream faith in Skyrim, drove the Direni hegemony from Skyrim, and waged war against the Orcs. Records are limited as to how these feats were accomplished, and many legends tell grand stories of the achievement of Wulfharth. Alright. History of Skyrim Primer, Volume 3, Second Era, by Giraud Germain. While the Akaviri Potentate saw the decline and disintegration of much of the Second Empire, Skyrim was one of the most rebellious provinces in this respect, destroying a fortress at Dawnstar which catalyzed the Potentate to crush all other large-scale armed forces in Tamriel. During this period, Skyrim maintained most of its own structure, with the Moot continuing to elect kings and functioning largely independently of Rhysdache and his son. King Logroth was the last High King during the Potentate, and was assassinated in Second Era 431. Following Logroth's assassination, the crown chose his daughter Freydis as High Queen. This was disputed by Svarter, the Jarl of Solitude, who held a partial moot to proclaim himself High King in the west, signaling the split of the king of Skyrim into two kingdoms. Svartalfheim was unable to keep an influx of orcs fleeing the recent destruction of Orsinium out of his realm, and the chieftain Yashnagro Yazgu, along with increasingly rebellious reachmen, was the disruptive presence in the west for several decades, although some sources claim this was confined to Falkreath. This was ultimately ended in Second Era 467 when Hawkvild slew Yajnag in single combat. Without a leader, the orcs scattered into the Hrothgarian mountains. The Second Akaviri invasion landed east of Windhelm in Second Era 572. Rather than landing on the east of Morrowind, the leader was the king of the Kamal, Adasum dir Kamal. They sacked Windhelm and killed Queen Mabjarn and Nirnhild, her heir. Jorun, her younger son, either escaped the sack or was in Riften and came to Windhelm as the gates fell. In response to his invasion, the Ebonheart Pact was formed between Skyrim, Morrowind, and Blackmarsh. Jorun and rallied troops from across eastern Skyrim, including summoning the spirit of Wolfarth to help the Nords. Following the return of Jorun, now calling himself King Jorun, the Nords held the Akaviri at bay, while the Dunmer approached from the east and cornered the Akaviri at Stonefalls, and supplemented by a legion of Argonians, drive the Akaviri into the sea. Another account claims that Jorun and Vildgor Strong Prince arrived at the battle at the same time, and following the invasion dueled for the kingship of eastern Skyrim to avoid civil war. After 3 hours of fighting, Jorun emerged victorious and banished Vildgor, who fled to the Daggerfall Covenant. 10 years after the formation of the Pact, Jorun is noted to be its head. In Second Era 852, an allied force of Nords and Bretons occupied the fortress of Sancretor in the Gerald Mountains in northern Cyrodiil, which was then besieged by Talos under the authority of King Culhwch, and defeated through Breton treachery. Following the battle, the Nords swore allegiance to Tiber Septim and joined the efforts to conquer Cyrodiil. Note that available texts regarding the battle do not say that this was the point where Skyrim joined the Second Empire, merely that Nordic troops joined the Cyrodiilic army reunification. There is no documented account of how or why Skyrim was reunified, but it had presumably been a single entity for some time when the first pocket guide to the Empire was published in Second Era 864, and its division and reunification does not merit a mention in the text. Another possibility is that the Imperial Geographic Society had some motive to hide the fact that the kingdom was ever divided. It is also likely that Tiber Septim reunified Skyrim through his actions at Sancretor in Second Era 852. Alright, and with that fresh in my mind, let me find my supervising instructor and attempt this exam. Greetings.
Hello.
I'm ready for my history exam.
I'm glad to hear that. I warn you, in order to pass, you must answer all of the questions correctly. Bards are keepers of history, and it's important that we have a good understanding of it. Are you sure that you're ready?
Yes, I am ready.
Very well. First question. Who was the leader of the Atmoran expedition to Skyrim?
That was Iskram.
Correct. Next question. Who was the leader of the Snow Elves during the Nordic-Palmer War?
That would be the Snow Prince.
Correct. Next question. Which king of Skyrim relinquished all holdings in Atmora, proclaiming the people of Skyrim as independent?
That was King Harald.
Correct. Next question. Which claimant to the throne of Skyrim did the Crown of Verity reject?
Oh, that was Azurn Icebreaker.
Correct. Next question. What event led to the founding of the Ebonheart Pact?
That would be the Second Akaviri invasion.
Correct. Last question. What happened during the Red Year to give it that name?
This is not in my history books, that's much more recent, but that's the year that the Red Mountain erupted.
Very well done. You've passed your history examination. The next course is song lyrics. You need to listen to bards play traditional songs to learn the words. You should also review Songs of Skyrim, a book about traditional songs that you can find in the library. When you feel ready to take the oral exam, please come and see me.
You know, I've listened, I've heard quite a few bards singing.
Good to see you.
I would like to take my lyrics exam.
I'm glad to hear that. I warn you that in order to pass, you must answer all of the questions correctly.
Alright.
Songs are a cornerstone of being a bard, and it is important that you are familiar with the most popular songs of Skyrim. Are you sure that you are ready?
Yes.
Very well. First question. Where was Ragnar the Red riding to in the song Ragnar the Red?
He was riding to Whiterun.
Correct.
From
Next
Rorikstead.
question. What is the name of the shield maiden in the song Ragnar the Red?
Matilda.
Correct. Next question. Which song offers an archetype of what Nords should be?
Offers an archetype of what Nords should be. That'd be Ragnar the Red.
I'm sorry, that's incorrect. You'll need to retake the test.
No. Yeah,
I'm glad to hear
I'm
that.
gonna
Songs
reattempt
are a
this
cornerstone.
test.
Are you sure that you are ready?
yes, I am
Very
ready.
Well. First question. Where was Ragnar the Red riding to?
Whiterun.
Next question.
Matilda.
Correct. Next question. Which song offers an archetype of what Nords should be?
Absolutely none of the options that you give me. The Dragonborn
Correct.
comes.
Next question. True or false? The opening lyric of The Dragonborn Comes is, our hero wields the ancient Nord art.
False.
Correct. Next question. The Age of Aggression is a song that favors which faction in the Civil War?
That would be the Empire.
Final question. Both the Age of Aggression and the Age of Oppression feature the lyric, and when Sovngarde beckons, but how does the lyric end?
Every one of us dies.
Correct. Well done. You're doing very well in your courses so far. The next course is about the historic musical instruments on display here at the Bard's College. Learning about them will help you better appreciate the proud tradition that you're becoming a part of. Go through the Bard's College and read the plaques beside the instruments to learn about them. When you feel ready to take the oral exam, please come and see me.
Understood. I suppose I'll start here. Rorner's Drum. Crafted by the most famous battle drummer of the Second Age, this drum saw many famous battles and inspired the great deeds of many warriors. Rorner vanished when on a riding expedition, and his drum was lost for centuries. It was recently rediscovered and brought to the Bard's College through the combined efforts of the Dean of History and a bard of the college. Oh, that's the drum I just brought back, isn't it? Exalted Flute of Dune. The centuries-old flute was passed down a lineage of the exalted bard of Dune, Valenciennesia, who crafted the flute in her youth. Many legends and rumors surround the flute and propose that it has remarkable powers, the most famous of which is the claim that the listeners will fall in love with the player. Investigations by the Bard's College after its donation found that the flute has no magical properties. Instead, it is likely that Valencia Nasica and her descendants were simply so talented that listeners were naturally enthralled by them. Oh, what's this? I Fancy's 20-string harp lute. The 20-string combination harp and lute is the creation of the Khajiit bard I Fancy. Was a shockingly successful experiment near the end of his life. I Fancy taught several of his fellow Khajiit how to play the complex instrument, though it never caught on, as the care of it is more complex than the harp or lute. Nonetheless, the Bard's College was fortunate to receive the original instrument as a donation at the end of I Fancy's life. Cool. What's this here? Chime of the Endless. This small chime protected Ujira, adept of the Zizkura, from the merciless attack of a Dro Ma'athra that killed all others at her Adeptatorium. By her rhythmic tapping of the chime, Ujira composed a hymn to Joan and Jode that kept her safe through that horrible night. The hymn was unfortunately lost, but the chime survived. The college restricts the use of this chime out of respect to our Khajiit compatriots. What's this over here?
Did you ever get a chance to count how many fingers Inge has?
Lily Tongue. Master harpists played the Aldmeri harp Lily Tongue in the High Court of Alinor since time immemorial. Lily Tongue was the instrument used in some of the most enchanting arias produced by the elegant composer Romuald. The harp disappeared during the War of the Uvachil and was presumed destroyed. Lily Tongue resurfaced in the last century after being lost for more than 500 years. It now sits in a place of honor in the Bard's College as an example of the history, eminent beauty, and unparalleled artistry of the High Elf crafters.
Wonder if it's easier to play the lute with 6 fingers. Playing a flute must be harder.
What do we have here? Italian fife. One of the last flutes crafted by the legendary imperial flutesmith Pateron Atia. Pateron's flutes were rare and coveted. This is the last one he finished working on before he died, which he specifically donated to the Bard's College to be enjoyed and preserved for the centuries to come. Though some of his fifes are still used around Tamriel, most are kept hidden away by collectors, or the supremely talented flautists within the Atia family. Right, and what's this other flute? Morndizi. A flute of Akaviri design, this instrument was played at the funerary procession for the last Akaviri potentate, Savrian Chorak. It is said that as the sad and haunting notes of the Dizi were played, the Akaviri faithful in attendance broke into tears, hearing the distant voice of their homeland. Even non-Akaviri were moved by the mournful, yearning tones, some even more than the Akaviri themselves. Alright. I already read about that one. Oh, I haven't read about this. Sky Talker. This drum was used by an unknown Argonian slave during one of the many slave rebellions in Shadowfen. Although the owner's name is lost to history, oral tradition says the drum named Sky Talker was used to send messages to different slave gangs during the revolt. Drum voices are often described as inspiring the rebels to great deeds. This drum is a reminder to all bards that even in the worst times, music can raise the spirit and inspire the soul. Right. Anything over here? No. Hopefully there's nothing in people's personal rooms. Longfire. This tambour is an example of Yokudan artistry. It is believed this instrument was owned by a sword singer in Frandar Hunding's expedition to Hammerfell. According to custom, Yokudan bards considered their instrument sacred, imbued with a divine spirit. Longfire was named for quiet nights in the deep desert when a bard would gather with his companions to play the songs of their lost homeland by the light of the stars in a low-burning fire. Also someone's room. Ah, here are 2 more instruments. And actually a handful more down this way too. The Lute of Blue Longing. This instrument belonged to the cursed bard Jaldred. While playing at the court of the East Kingdom, the queen became smitten with the handsome bard. Callously, he composed a tender ballad to seduce her. Before dawn, his pleasure done, the faithless bard slipped away and fled the castle. Realizing she had been cruelly deceived, the queen took her own life after laying a fearsome curse upon Jaldred. It compelled him to sing the song of his treachery, as her spirit appeared whenever he took up his lute. I did not mean to open that. Petraloop. Made by Master Petra, this lute carries a wonderful warm tone and robust voice unrivaled among other instruments. The curious name comes from many an inebriated bard calling for Petra's lute at the end of a long session. Inscribed on the back of the names are many of the college's most famous bards. Interesting. What do we have here? Shadow of Rajin. According to legend, a young and foolish bard bargained with Rajin for powers to seduce any person he wished with his songs. However, such deals always come with a price. While the young man could inspire lustful passion, his songs stoked equally jealous fury and cuckolded rivals. For a time, the young bard's luck held and even provided him material for tales of challenges, duels, and midnight escapes. But eventually his luck turned and he was killed. The lyre passed to another who discovered how to activate its secret and met the same eventual fate. Those wishing to play the lyre do so at their own risk. And Dozen Talharpa. A crude version of a lyre. Its provenance tells of twin Breton brothers Dozen and Jibhun. Their legacy was of a musical competition in their town's square using tall harpas. They drew such a crowd with their raucous, high-tempo interplay that people started dancing and cheering, but tragedy befell the twins after on their way home. Dozen fell down a hill and was badly wounded. Knowing his end was near, he bade Jibhun vow to use his sinew to craft a new talharpa, and use it to inspire the people to dance. Jibhun did so, crafting this very instrument with his brother's sinew, but could not bring himself to play it with joy, so he donated it to the Bard's College. That's kind of gruesome. Well, guys, don't make instruments out of my pieces, okay? Actually, I already told someone they could have my body when I die. So yes, I will become part of that one lady's necromantic art. Were there any more here? I just see a book. There aren't any more plaques in this classroom, are there? No, I don't see any.
I think we should stay away from the kitchen area. Ben doesn't seem too fond of visitors. Maybe he thinks we will steal the precious food.
Pan flute of Morichias Hag Husband. This pan flute belonged to the legendary Skald and former instructor Morichias Hag Husband. He was one of the few masters of this obscure instrument. Noted for his eccentricities, it is said Morichias crafted the flute from the leg bone of his twin brother, who died in a mishap. Ever mischievous, the Skald would sometimes confirm the story and sometimes deny it. Given the unsettling material of the flute and the questionable hygiene of playing it, Morichias had few students to tutor and no successor. Interesting.
How are your studies?
So far, so good, thank you. Riemann War Drum. Many drummers accompanied the armies of Riemann as he defended Skyrim from the Akaviri. This drum, which belonged to one of those soldiers, was likely present at the Battle of Pale Pass, when Akaviri knelt before Riemann. Though it served in his regiments of several more leaders of the Riemann dynasty, it faded out of use before the last Riemann emperor was assassinated. Since then, the drum has passed from Jarl to Jarl by inheritance, gift, or conquest. The drum now sounds on the feast days of the great heroes of Skyrim.
Hello.
Hello. Kothringi Leviathan Horn. The extinct Kothringi people of Blackmarsh have very few relics behind, but the Bard's College cherishes this mournful instrument as a reminder of their culture and the ravages of the Nahatan flu. This cheerful bugle was fashioned from the horn of a leviathan, a creature of terrible power that roams Blackmarsh, and dyed with silver-blue pigments to match the skin color of the lost Kothringi people. The loud ringing tones are as joyful and uplifting as the Kothringi people in their prime. King Thunder. The Orsimer bellowing drum, King Thunder, is renowned for both its bass tone and the sheer volume it produces. The Orcs prize drums for both celebration and war, creating complex rhythms as the foundation of their warlike rituals. This drum was hidden during the Siege of Orsinium and eventually made its way to Yajnag Groyazgu's stronghold in Falkreath. The drum was presented to the college by Jarl Skald to commemorate his victory over Chief Yajnag and his his champions. Kalissos Lodestone. According to the Master Bard Kalissos, he gained this lyre by tricking the mad god himself. Encountering Sheogorath, Kalissos played the most arousing love song Sheogorath had ever heard. Kalissos convinced the Sheogorath that his plain lyre had been imbued by Dibella with her raw passion. Sheogorath offered Lodestone, a lyre that he tied to Kalissos' soul, which would bring Kalissos fame and glory in exchange. The lyre did as promised, but one morning Lodestone was found in a practice room at the college, and Kalissos was never heard from again. Interesting. Yohar Fusoja. Early in the Second Era, the Main of Elsewhere donated his Khanum to the Bard's College in exchange for allowing Khajiit to attend and teach here. At the time, high-ranking Khajiit officials sought ways to preserve and spread their culture against the encroaching imperial rule of the Riemann dynasty. This Khanum was played at the celebration to announce the end of the Thracian plague that devastated Elsewhere. Named Jahar Fusoja, or Instrument of Celebration, today it reminds us to glory in life and never forget the old songs. Okay.
Strange.
There isn't anything else up here, is there? Oh, there's a class
All right.
going on.
Let's try something a bit more fun. Go ahead, Ataf.
Oh, there once was a hero named Ragnar the Red who came riding to Whiterun from
Okay.
old
I'm
Rorikstead.
not feeling this.
That was better, Ataf. Add a bit of emphasis on Ragnar and Red.
Remember, it's your job to deliver these songs, to excite the crowd, draw them in. They love.
Where does this go? Someone else's room. Okay. Good to know. Oh, it seems to be my instructor's room. Sorry, I didn't mean to barge in. I just saw the ladder and wondered where it went. I figured it went to the roof.
Maybe we could have a for Syndra. I'm sure she would be happy to play something for us. She does it so well.
I'm good, thank you. Alright, let's check and see if there were any other instruments to look at in the basement. Oh, that's that. Okay. You know, down where the dorms are. Nope, I didn't see any. Alright, let's go find her again then. Was that in here? Yes, it was. Oh, did she
sorry.
leave? Oh, there she is.
How go your studies?
Why are all the exams oral?
It is to honor the origins of bards. You see, bards didn't always have books and libraries, so they would memorize long poems and songs to preserve historical events. The Bards College uses oral exams as a way of reminding students of that history and training them to memorize information. After all, once you leave the Bards College, you won't be able to take the library with you.
I mean, if I make copies of all the books, I would be able to. But I'm ready for the exam about the Bards College musical instruments.
I'm glad to hear that. I warn you, in order to pass, you must answer all of the questions correctly. Are you sure that you are ready?
Yes, I am ready.
Very well. First question. What is the name of the Orsimer drum on display at the Bards College?
Orsimer drum? That was King Thunder.
Next question. Which instrument is said to have been swindled from Shigarath by Kalasios?
Oh, that was the lodestone.
Correct. Next question. Which instrument was the creation of the Khajiit bard I Fancy?
Oh, that's the 20-string harp lute.
Good. Next question. What culture does the harp lily tongue originate from?
Old Mary.
Correct. Next question. What purpose did the drum Sky Talker serve?
Oh, sending messages to slaves during the revolt.
Correct. Final question. Which historic bard originally owned the Lute of Blue Longing?
Jaldred.
Well done. I'm glad to see that you paid attention to the musical history we've preserved here. Maybe someday one of your instruments will be on display here. You're ready to start your instrument training, beginning with the drum. Here is a set of drum books you need to study to pass the oral exam. After you pass the exam, you will start practicing the drum. When you feel ready to take the oral exam, please come and see me.
Alright, understood.
Hi there.
Well, I suppose I should start learning about drums. And that's going to be all for today. Thank you very much for tuning in. This is the tale of Naarifin the Skald, and I am some guy you've never heard of. Unless, of course, you have.